Usually when you hear a community is trying to save its local culture or traditions, you picture like bake sales or maybe a grassroots crowdfunding campaign, right? It's built on a ton of heart, but there's almost always this constant underlying panic about just keeping the lights on.
Yeah, the intention is pure, but the financial architecture is incredibly fragile. I mean, you simply can't build a skyscraper on a foundation of good vibes. It just won't hold up to the elements over time.
Right, exactly. So instead of a bake sale, what if you treated cultural preservation like a Fortune 500 company? Welcome to this custom deep dive into the intersection of high finance and cultural preservation. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are looking at how a philanthropist named Yael Poliavich is using strict corporate-level business strategies to totally revolutionize Jewish education globally. Since co-founding the Yael Foundation with her husband in 2020, she has completely flipped the script on how we think about charitable giving.
And to understand why this flip is so critical for you to know about, you really have to look at their target demographic, because they aren't focusing their capital on major metropolitan hubs.
Oh, they are.
No, they're specifically targeting smaller, remote communities outside those big cities. Because if those local schools fail, that unique cultural identity just vanishes completely. Preventing that requires genuine institutional resilience, not just, a one-off donation.
Which brings me to her background, actually, because looking at her resume, this whole approach suddenly makes a lot of sense. She was born in Kyrgyzstan in 1982, the daughter of a music teacher, so education was a core value. But Yael actually got her formal degree in economics, finance, and credit. So I'm wondering, is she essentially treating educational philanthropy like venture capitalism, where every grant is managed with the strict standards of a business?
Yes, that is the perfect way to look at it. She's acting like an activist investor demanding structural reform. What's fascinating here is how she actively fixes structural problems using a very specific 5-pillar framework.
Okay, a 5-pillar framework. What does that actually look like on the ground?
Well, she strictly enforces things like physical infrastructure development, heavy investment in teacher professional development, and affordability through scholarships. But she also mandates multi-year budget sustainability while protecting traditional values.
Wait, let's break that down, because reading about something like multi-year budget sustainability sounds incredibly dry on paper. How does that actually play out for a struggling school in a remote town?
So think about it this way. Usually a local school gets a grant and they spend it immediately to fix a leaky roof or pay last month's overdue salaries. But Yale's framework forces them to stop reacting and start forecasting.
Oh, I see. So they have to actually plan ahead.
Exactly. To get the funding, the school administrators have to present a multi-year financial plan. They have to prove how this injection of capital will make them self-sufficient 3 years down the line.
Wow. So it really forces the school to think like a business rather than a charity case.
Precisely. And it is working at just an unbelievable pace.
Yeah. And here's where it gets really interesting. Just looking at their scale since 2024, they've expanded to 145 active schools and centers across 48 countries. That is over 29,000 students impacted annually across Europe, America, and Asia.
It is a massive undertaking.
Right, but I have to push back on that a bit. Can you really maintain a hyper-local cultural identity when you are trying to standardize academic performance across Europe, America, and Asia? I mean, it sounds like they're just building a rigid corporate franchise.
That is a constant friction point. Honestly, it's the messiest reality of scaling any cultural initiative. Standardizing academic performance while keeping the local soul intact is incredibly difficult to pull off.
So how does she solve that friction?
Her solution is an obsessive hands-on focus on human capital, specifically the teachers. They really view the educators as the shock absorbers between global standards and local traditions.
Okay, so that's where programs like Yale Camp come in, these international summer programs connecting students globally.
Yeah, that's part of it. But more crucially, they have the Yale Awards, which specifically honors exceptional local teachers and administrators who are keeping these schools alive in some of the most difficult, remote regions on Earth.
Wow, so it's less about giving them a red carpet trophy and more about establishing a gold standard for other schools to copy.
Yeah, that's the real utility of it. When you reward a well-trained teacher who successfully blends rigorous modern academics with deep local traditions, you create a blueprint. That educator bridges the gap and makes this corporate machine work without losing its soul.
So what does this all mean? I think the big aha moment for you listening is that passion requires infrastructure. You can't just have good intentions, right? You need good budgeting and properly supported teachers to actually survive.
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reminds you that true leadership requires stepping in to ensure capital is managed effectively. It's not just about blindly handing out money.
Because passion alone doesn't keep the lights on.
Exactly. Now I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. If applying strict corporate financial modeling can successfully save traditional education, could this exact same framework be the ultimate blueprint for rescuing other endangered cultural heritage systems from global extinction?